I walked into a classroom at Divinity School, and there was already a Catholic and a Protestant sitting there. And here comes a Latter-day Saint. Sounds like a good joke beginning, right? Well, I sat down, we're waiting for the other students to come and the professor, and the Catholic turns to me and says, Jared, I know you're Latter-day Saint, but what I don't know is where you fit in among all these denominations. I mean, you're not a Catholic, so does that make you a Protestant? And the Protestant was like, whoa, we don't claim him. I'm like, okay, thanks, appreciate it. Well, the Catholic was a guy and the Protestant was a girl, and so I laughed. I said, if the two of you got married and had a kid, it would be me. And they're like, we don't even like each other. I'm like, I know, Reformation, I get it. But there's elements of both sides that come together in a faith that is really well equipped to prove contraries. Now, from the Protestant side, well, let's start with Catholics historically. From the Catholic side, we see an importance of church hierarchy, popes and archbishops and bishops and so forth, a priesthood that is clearly marked, and ordinances or sacraments, as the Catholic calls them, that have to be given through authority. Has to tap back into St. Peter himself, who received the keys of the kingdom from Jesus. Okay? Thank you, Catholicism. We agree. Meanwhile, Protestantism's great gift is to spread through the word, through scripture, the blessings of the gospel to everyone and to allow everyone to have the authority of scripture backing them up. Martin Luther talked about a priesthood of all believers. And so if Catholicism gives us hierarchy, Protestantism gives us democracy. If Catholicism emphasizes order, Protestantism emphasizes freedom. Now, can hierarchy get so far away from democracy that it turns into a tyranny? Yes. But can democracy get so democratic that there's not a hint of hierarchy, and to the point that democracy almost turns into anarchy? The problems get outside the Goldilocks zone, right? Take either positive to an extreme and it's no longer positive. Now, one of the beautiful things about the restored gospel of Jesus Christ in wedding these two marriage partners is there is a hierarchical line of authority with priesthood and priesthood keys all the way down. And yet there is a priesthood of all believers that even Martin Luther would be jealous of. Amazing, the combination of the two. We see that in section 20 and the duties of all these different offices. But in 21, we see clearly Joseph Smith is given 5 titles. And these titles are going to establish a hierarchy where Joseph is prophet, seer, and revelator, or as said here, prophet, seer, and translator, and elder, and apostle. That rounds out the 5. Now, what's interesting, again, back to our Catholic side, we're seeing a bit more of our Protestantism in section 20, but some more of our Catholicism in 21. And from the Catholic side, there's an old joke that often goes around that Catholics believe in an infallible pope, but don't act like it. Whereas Latter-day Saints don't believe in an infallible prophet, but they act like they do. Now, we're going to see that clearly in section 21. Start with verse 4 and 5. Wherefore, meaning the church, since we finally have one, that's great news, meaning the church, thou shalt give heed unto all his, Joseph's, words and commandments, which he shall give unto you as he receiveth them, walking in all holiness before me. For his word ye shall receive as if from mine own mouth, in all patience and faith. Now, depending on what side of the family you're coming from, Catholic or Protestant, that might be an easy phrase to embrace or a very difficult one. Sometimes we grow up and we sing Follow the Prophet in primary, and we sing We Thank Thee, O God, for a Prophet in sacrament meeting, and we love this verse. Of course, I give heed to all the words and commandments that come from prophetic voices. Then again, we live in an increasingly anti-institutional age, an increasingly anti-organizational age, an increasingly ultra-individualistic age. And so the thought of giving heed to anybody's words but our own can be hard to come by, especially when we know that prophets are not infallible. How do we follow fallibility? That is something worth wrestling long and hard with. And this section gives us a few hints. I have told my students over the years, you're welcome to disagree with prophets and apostles. I would just ask you, number one, have you paid the same price to receive words from God that they are paying? The caliber of conversation partners that you have, does it compare to the caliber of conversation partners they have? Have you done the same amount of homework on this issue than that prophets and apostles are doing? And are you living as consecrated a life as you possibly can? Because they are, imperfect as it might be, man, they are trying. My hat is off to all 15 prophets, seers, revelators that are doing their very best to live the kinds of things to live in such a way that we as members of the church can accept Section 21 and accept them. That's a tall order on their part. It will require patience and faith on our part. And that phrase might be the most important one in all of Section 21. Patience and faith. Faith that they are seeing things, that if I'm patient enough, I'll someday see them too. Those watchmen on the tower can see further off than I can. And yet if I wait and demand that I'm not going to act until I see what you say you're seeing, then by then the problem has already gotten too close. Do I have the faith that they are seeing something? And do I have the patience to wait until I see it myself? These are tall orders for prophets and apostles. They're tall orders for us members too. I am grateful for the democracy of a priesthood of all believers. I'm grateful I can think for myself and act for myself. At the same time, I am eternally grateful for a hierarchy of prophets and apostles, the foundation upon which Christ has always built his church. In fact, to hint at that, look at verse 9. Behold, I will bless all those who labor in my vineyard with a mighty blessing, and they shall believe on his words. And yes, that gift of faith is a mighty blessing, to have that kind of trust instead of cynicism. But notice what he says. This blessing of belief on prophets' words, let's be more specific. His words, comma, which are given him through me by the Comforter, comma, so let's be even more specific, which manifesteth that Jesus was crucified by sinful men for the sins of the world, yea, for the remission of sins unto the contrite heart. That's what the gospel's all about. That's what it all boils down to. That is the mission of a prophet, seer, and revelator, a true servant and apostle of Jesus Christ, to bear witness of him to the world. It's those words, that testimony, that you can take to the bank. It's that testimony. There is so much else that prophets and apostles have to do to run an incredibly complex global organization that is trying to bless the world in countless ways. If all they had to do was bear their witness of Jesus Christ, then yes, I believe in infallible prophets. But since there's so much else on their plate, then that's where fallibility comes in. That's where struggle and tension and error and human foible and all of those other things. I'm grateful for a quorum in which unanimity can help offset some of that fallibility. But the thing I can hold on to and hang my hat on is their witness of Jesus Christ. Those words are always confirmed by the Comforter himself. Those words coming from prophets, I know, are coming from God himself, who wants to bear witness of his only begotten Son. My testimony of Jesus stands firm, and I owe much of it to my testimony of living prophets. Past prophets in Scripture, living prophets bearing witness of a living Christ. That's the infallible part. That I can hold on to.